Hello there, my darlings, and welcome to a new episode of After Dark Fairy Tales. Got a new story for you guys. The title of this one is called Twisted. Now, this wonderful story was written by an author who I narrated a few of their stories in the past, and his name is Daniel Hayes. And if you don't know which stories those were that I narrated, that was Hothead and Hothead 2, which I thought were very magnificent. So please check out those other stories I narrated by Daniel. This new story by Daniel, like I said, is called Twisted, and I thought it was pretty damn good. So I was going to read it to you guys, and you guys let me know what you think. I want to give all the credit to Daniel, and I'm very happy that he wants me to narrate this creepy tale. To all my new subscribers, I'd like to say welcome to After Dark Fairy Tales, and I'm glad you guys are enjoying the stories. Try to bring some really creepy, interesting content to you guys each week, so I'm glad to see that you guys are enjoying it, and thank you for the comments and the likes and the subscribing. So, you guys ready to hear this new tale? Well, let's get to it. Twisted by Daniel Hayes. The Pineview Diner on East Cumberland Drive was bustling with people as John twiddled his thumbs, wondering if he should go in. The Pineview Diner is a local hotspot for couples young and old. The menu was next to none, with exquisite dishes made from the best culinary artists in town. The lighting was dark and ambient, with classical music playing in the background. John was next in line to be seated, so it was time to make a big decision. He slowly walked over to the front desk and was greeted by a young girl with blonde hair. "Hi, my name is Pam. Table for one?" she asked. John, still twiddling his thumbs, said, "I'm actually meeting someone today." The hostess opened her eyes wide and raised her eyebrows high above her forehead. "Oh, okay. Who are you meeting, sir?" she asked. John stopped twiddling his thumbs and said, "I'm here to meet April Higgins." Pam checked her list and said, "Oh, okay. You must be John. Mrs. Higgins is already waiting for you. Please follow me." She walked so briskly that John thought he might lose her in the crowd. He noticed the fancy round tables complete with white tablecloths and candles that flickered in the wind. The chairs were all padded with red velvet cushions, and crystal chandeliers hung throughout the entire eating area. Not paying attention, John finally came face to face with April. His anxiety was getting the best of him. His vision and hearing became clouded, like a sailor lost at sea. He managed to hear Pam say, "Have a seat. Your waiter should be along in a moment." April stood up, and John noticed how beautiful she looked. She was wearing a black dress that came down to her knees, and her golden blonde hair was shining like the sun on a hot sunny day. "John, how are you?" "Wow, you look fantastic," April said. John cleared his head and spoke in a calm voice. "I'm fine. You look amazing." April reached out and gave him a hug. This was not a lover's hug, where two people lovingly embrace each other. It was a friendly hug with a quick pat on the back and a quick withdrawal. They sat down and were greeted by their waiter. "Good evening. I'm Alberto, and I will be serving you tonight. Can I get you started with a drink?" April replied, Yes. We will have a bottle of Dom Perignon, please." "That's expensive. Are you sure?" asked John. April smiled and said, "It's your birthday, and we are going to celebrate it." "Very good, miss. I'll bring it shortly," Alberto said, stepping away. "You look very handsome tonight, John. I almost didn't recognize you in that suit," April said. John started laughing. He took a deep breath and collected himself. "I hate dressing up. This black suit cost me a small fortune." "Well, it was worth every penny," she said. John was tired of the pleasantries and asked, "How long has it been, April?" 5, maybe 6 months. April's smile faded quickly like dust in the wind and said, 6 months. It's been 6 months. That's a long time to be separated. How's our house treating you? John asked. April shook her head, knowing how awkward the situation was. It's still our home, John. Just then, Alberto came with a bottle of Dom Perignon and a silver bucket of ice. He pulled the bottle out and placed it on his forearm. He started swaying it from right to left as if he were rocking a newborn baby to sleep. Shall I pour you a glass? April nodded in approval. Alberto grabbed her glass and poured exactly 30 millimeters and placed it down in front of her dining plate. Then he grabbed John's glass, pouring the same amount. As he placed the glass down, he spilt it on John's lap. John quickly rose and said, "What's wrong with you? Do you have any idea how much this suit cost?" "I'm terribly sorry, sir. I will get you a towel," Alberto said. April could tell that John was growing angry because his face was glowing like red-hot embers on a cold winter's night. John grabbed some napkins and patted himself off. Alberto quickly came back with a white towel and said, "I am sorry, sir. The bottle of wine is on the house tonight." John was surprised and said, "Well, good. I appreciate that. I'm sorry for getting angry with you." "No apology is necessary, sir," Alberto said. "I will be back to take your order shortly." Looking at John with judgmental eyes, April said, "I see you still have that temper." "I'm sorry, April. I'm getting better. I'm taking classes," John said while taking a seat. April continued, "I know it's your birthday today, but I didn't ask you to come here for that." She stopped to take a sip of her wine. "I called you here to say I'm sorry. When we had that argument, I thought we were over. I've missed you." John cut in. "It hasn't been easy for me either. Living in a rundown motel is not my idea of a good time." He poured himself a glass of wine and took a big drink. Feeling refreshed, he continued, "I miss you too. Has there been anyone else?" "No, no one could take your place," she said. "What about you?" "Oh no, the thought never entered my mind," he said. April suddenly had an idea. She drank the rest of her wine, perhaps to build up enough courage to ask a question. "John, I was wondering if you wanted to skip dinner." John felt his anxiety disappear and said, "What did you have in mind?" "I made you a birthday cake this morning. I was hoping we could put that argument behind us. Maybe you could come home, have some cake and coffee, and see if we could start over," she said. John felt a weight lift from his chest. He was elated. "I would love to. Let's go right now." April practically jumped out of her seat, and John followed. They ran out of the restaurant like two thieves in the night. When they arrived home, they noticed Marjorie, the nosy neighbor, peeking through her windows. "Come on, John, let's go in before nosy Marge decides to come over." John started laughing. "She has a nickname now?" April quickly unlocked the door and said, "Oh yes, she's always into everyone's business. She drives me crazy." She led John into the kitchen, and he was greeted by a beautiful, double-layered cake. "Welcome home, John. I'll get the coffee ready." Just then, a hard pounding came from the front door. John answered the door and found nosy Marge staring at him. She looked just like he remembered her. Her clothes were too tight, and she had so much makeup on that it looked like she was wearing a mask. "John, is that you?" she asked. "I never thought I would ever see you again." She pushed her way in and called out to April, "Hey girl, I see you got your man back." April poked her head out from the kitchen and said, "Marjorie, how nice to see you." She forcefully made herself smile. Marjorie adjusted her glasses and said, "After that argument you two had, I thought you were done, finished." She walked over to the kitchen to see April. John followed behind her with an irritated look on his face. "I'm just getting some coffee ready," April said. "Oh, don't trouble yourself. I can't drink that stuff anyway. It makes my bowels run off," Marjorie said. "I'm glad to see you two back together after all this time. I never understood what that argument was about anyway." Her eyes darted to John's birthday cake. "Oh, I just love cake. Do you mind if I have a piece?" Marjorie grabbed a big kitchen knife from the counter and was getting ready to cut herself a piece. She was practically salivating. April grew furious with anger and said, "You want to know what that argument was about, you stupid witch? I'll tell you." Marjorie turned around and asked, "What are you getting all worked up about?" April grabbed the knife from Marjorie's hand and yelled, "That big argument that we had was a very big misunderstanding. You see, we couldn't figure something out. I say it's easier to kill someone by cutting their throats, and John thinks it's easier to completely decapitate them." Marjorie started to laugh. When she composed herself, she said, "You are such a joker." She reached out for the knife and said, I just want a slice of cake, honey. Now give me that knife." April yelled, "You want a slice of cake? Have a slice." She quickly slashed at Marjorie's neck, cutting her so deeply that it cut through her vocal cords. Blood spewed forth, covering April and John's face. Marjorie grabbed her throat with both hands and tried to scream, but the only noise she could make were gurgling sounds. Marjorie stumbled back into the table, knocking the cake to the floor. John took the knife from April's hand and said, "I told you that slicing the throat like that doesn't work." He walked over and grabbed Marjorie's hair in one hand and started hacking at her neck with the other. He took a full 3 whacks to completely decapitate her. Marjorie's body fell to the floor, twitching. Her head remained in John's hand. John tossed her head on the floor and it landed in the cake. "I told you, decapitation is the best method." April laughed so hard that tears started to stream down her face. "I love you, John. I never stopped." John reached out to her and they shared a loving hug. As their blood-soaked lips met for a passionate kiss, John said, "I love you too." They pulled up a chair and sat down. April looked at John and said, "God, I miss this. It's not the same killing without you." John nodded his head in agreement. He looked deep into her eyes and said, "You won't ever have to do this alone again, my love. From this moment on, we are back." April grabbed a paper towel to wipe her face and asked, "What should we do now?" John replied, "I've been out of the game for a while. I need some more practice." April smiled and said, "Do you have anyone in mind?" John nodded and said, "As a matter of fact, I do. That stupid waiter, Alberto, from the restaurant." April stood up and was filled with excitement. She started twirling around the kitchen and said, "Sweetheart, that's so twisted. I'm so glad you're back." Well, what did you guys think about that one? Was that dark or what? Well, I'm going to give all credit to Daniel Hayes. Like I said, I narrated 2 of his stories before, which is Hothead and Hothead 2. So you guys can check out those stories. And I hope you guys like this one. That Daniel, man, that was twisted. So you guys let me know what you thought about it. And I hope you guys enjoyed the story, most importantly, and my narration. But please check out Daniel's work. I posted the link. You can check out his other stories and also listen to those other videos like Hothead and Hothead 2. So I give all the credit to Daniel. I want to thank him for giving me the story, wanting me to narrate it, and I hope I brought it to life for him and for you guys as well. So you guys let me know what you thought about this one in the comments, and I'll be back next time with another After Dark fairy tale for you guys. And until then, good night, my darlings.